go ahead and set the next meeting. We have our regularly scheduled council briefing. I will turn the agenda over to Mr. Staphopoulos.
Thank you, Mayor. As we discussed a little under 2 months or so ago, as the council went through the exercise with Florida Institute of Government to create the outline for our strategic plan, one of the things we did as staff, similar to when we did the vision and mission statements, was to go back as a leadership team after taking a little bit of time to digest everything that happened in the one-day session and come back to council with some comments for consideration of inclusion and or modification to the actual document itself. The memo that you should have gotten for tonight's item actually has 3 attachments provided with it. The first one is the actual final report that was issued by Florida Institute of Government, and that is an unaltered document. That is the final report that was produced by Jeff Hendry and his team. The second document is a strike through and underline, so that way you can see the changes that were being proposed by staff in comparison to the existing language as it was in the original report. The third and final document is effectively a cleaned up copy of what the outline of the strategic plan will look like. What I'd like to do is walk through some of the more substantive changes that we were recommending to the strategic plan outline, and then see if you have any questions when we get to the end of the presentation. So the original plan had 3 priorities. Underneath each of the priorities were 2 goals, and underneath each of the 2 goals were 2 objectives. The first priority was quality of life, and under Goal 1, Objective 2, staff proposed some grammatical changes to Objective 2 itself, specifically to provide clarification not just to council and staff, but also for future staff members so that we understand the purpose of providing consistent measurement of community satisfaction was specifically so we could maintain high standards. The implication there is that the data won't just be recorded, it will actually be acted upon. And for that reason, we proposed some grammatical changes to Objective 2. For Priority 2, Public Safety, under Goal 1, we did have some substantial input from the police chief as well as some of the other department directors. And you can see that the first thing under Goal 1 is that we actually flipped the references to secure and safe. We put safe first, and we made it absolute that the community is safe and feels secure. We felt that that was a better representation of what the priority of our public safety departments are all about. But still going back to that second part, which is we also want the residents to feel secure, not just actually be secure. You can also see in Objective 2 that we shortened the language that was incorporated in there so that the mitigation of safety perception issues was not limited to only working with partner organizations. Whatever we needed to do to mitigate those safety perceptions would be on the table as far as actions from staff and public safety departments. Why don't I go through the full presentation first, and then we'll come back around and we can take it section by section and see what your comments are. For Priority 3, Local Economic Development, we added a little bit more clarity to Goal 1, Objectives 1 and 2. Specifically, the term that had been used was diversity of uses. After we kicked it around a little bit at the staff level, we're pretty sure that diversity of uses was implied or meant by the council to be those uses that are already referenced within the downtown CRA plans. And the example that I gave you is we could have a variety of commercial enterprises that want to take up shop downtown, but they may not necessarily meet the intent of the community, the intent of the CRA and of the city council for the type of diversification that we're actually talking about. So we tried to be a little bit more specific in that the diversity of uses is actually tied back to mixed use, commercial, retail, and living spaces, and taking a look at those that are approved by the plan. And then Objective 2 was simplified a little bit as well with implement the downtown vision plan. Probably the biggest thing that we had for council as a consideration was consideration of a 4th priority titled sustainability. And when we took a look at the appendices to the Florida Institute of Government report, when you were all deciding what were the priorities that you were going to focus on, there were a handful that did not get chosen as the top three, but they ended up working their way into the document in either goals or objectives, or at least affiliation with goals and objectives. The one term that was used that did not was the word sustainability. As we also reference in here, sustainability also made it into our mission statement, which we felt kind of raised the status of this particular term. So staff is proposing adding a fourth priority for sustainability with 3 goals underneath it. The first was promoting financial sustainability and stability, so that we could look at it from a fiscal perspective. We want to make sure we do not end up as one of the communities that over the past years has had to file for bankruptcy, and as a result, either reduce their square mileage or having to eliminate services just to stay fiscally solvent. The second was supporting environmental sustainability. This is something that we thought was pretty high on the council and the community's radar from the conversations that we had, the community conversations over the past 2 years, so that was the reason for goal number 2. The third one, providing organizational sustainability and relevance. We kicked this around as to whether or not this should be in here, but ultimately the directors looked at me and said, everything else that's in the strategic plan cannot be achieved if we do not have the right staff and the right resources in order to put towards the plan. And for that reason, goal number 3 stays in with sustainability as well. So again, the third attachment to that document basically shows you what a clean copy of all it would look like. But at this point, if you want, we can go back to priority number 1 and work our way through and see if there are any comments or suggestions from council as to whether you like what we've done, don't like what we've done, or like it but with modification.
I don't see any lights, so I guess that means we like it.
So from a consensus perspective, is council happy with the modifications we've made to priority 1 for quality of life? Excellent. How about for priority 2, public safety? Goal 1, objectives 1 and 2.
My only comment, and I don't have a problem with the way it was rewritten, but I can see how you didn't want to close it off that we have to work with partner organizations. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we can do a lot more with partner organizations, and I think the one I was thinking about when we wrote these objectives was Mission House in particular. So I just want to make sure we keep that in mind in terms of our partners being kind of force multipliers in terms of the work that we're doing in all aspects, but very specifically in this case to public safety. But I'm fine with it as it is because I can see the difference of it being a requirement versus an option.
Any other comments from council on priority 2? Hearing none, how about priority 3, local economic development, and our rephrasing of goal 1, objectives 1 and 2? Consensus that you all like that? Okay. And then how about the addition of priority 4, sustainability?
I think priority 4 makes it very clear why we were so happy to have the staff in the room with us when we did this work. Same as with the mission statement. I think we got to a point where we knew we needed it and we were I think we were done brain-wise. So I really like it, and I think it was great to have the staff input to help bring us home on this one. Sandy?
I just had a question about goal 3, objective 1, connect with our citizens and customers. Could you expand on that a little bit? Because it's, I'd just like to understand what you're thinking.
What I'm thinking there is that the effectiveness and sustainability of the organization is only as good as the communication and dialogue we have with our residents and our customer base. So when we talk about connect with our citizens and customers, that's everything from pushing information as well as engaging in dialogue in certain aspects and developing a rapport with the public where they look at their government, they know who their government is, they know what our mission is, and they actually support us in doing it. There's a lot of other government agencies that are out there that don't have a relationship between the organization and the community, and as a result, they're not able to achieve much other than just maintaining their status quo.
Okay, that's excellent, thank you.
Mr. Mesa?
I was going to ask the same question, but then I also was going to add a comment to which, on Goal 3, Objective 1, I think it's great. It's important that the organization connects with the citizens and the customers. I think it'll bring more value to this community as a whole. Some communities don't have the luxury we have with the customer service that the city provides, and I think it could be better. But this is awesome. Objective number 2, attract and retrain or retain. I think that's also imperative to make our organization even better. So I'm definitely in love with Goal 3, Objective 1 and 2.
Mr. Stokes?
Might want to personally thank you and the staff for, once again, putting a lot of hard work into this after we did. My only question is on Goal 3, where it's provide organizational sustainability and relevance. What is the relevance? I get the sustainability portion. I'm just wondering, what's a relevant workforce? What is that?
The relevance is less with the actual workforce than it is the organization and the working relationship it has with the community. If people don't feel comfortable coming into council chambers, if people don't feel comfortable picking up the phone and talking to employees and departments, if they're not willing to have that engagement because they just don't have a connection with their local governments, then there's a lot of things that even if we try to do, we won't be able to do it, or vice versa. If there are things they want done, we won't necessarily hear them when the time comes. So it's all about developing, fostering, and maintaining relationships with the community. Is there a consensus to keep priority 4 in the way it's written with the 3 goals?
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Golding?
Well, I kind of liked what Mike just said about developing and maintaining relationships with the community. Would it be more appropriate to maybe rephrase Objective 1 to be a little more descriptive than just connect with our citizens and customers? Whatever you just said was really good, and I thought was still short, but a little more to the point.
Certainly, if council wants to change the phrasing on that, we could change it from connect to, I think one of the terms we had used earlier was engage with our citizens and customers. But clearly, if you all want to do a little wordsmithing, we'd be more than happy to take your advice and write it out.
Okay, what about connect and engage, or is that redundant? Or,
Are you still mid-thought, Ms. Golding, or do you?
I'm struggling with the thought, actually.
Keep working on that. Mr. Nichols?
No, I mean, I like Connect. I mean, it shows that the city is making an effort to connect. To say engage means that that the community is choosing to be a part of it. I mean, I think that, I think Connect kind of covers what we're looking for. That to reach out and, I mean, I think it's fine the way it is. I'm not sure if you need much more to that.
Ms. Golden, how's that thought coming? Do we want to sleep on this one?
Well, I wish I could remember what Mike said, because.
Can you replay the tapes?
But yeah, I mean, I can be fine with it. I liked having a little more information, like he had said, develop relationships, and I think you said, what did you say?
And just to take it one step further, keep in mind that these are the priorities, goals, and objectives. We'll actually be talking about departmental initiatives and action items. So when we actually start putting the meat to the document, so to speak, each department is going to have an individual or multiple initiatives with action items that tie back to these PGOs. So it will be multifaceted, and in some cases it will be for engagement, in some cases it will be to push information in a certain direction. Maybe it's best to say, as an example, one of the things we've talked about and came out of the community conversations was doing a better job from the city's perspective of proactively marketing to people coming to the hotels about the city assets. And we've not yet had those conversations of what that would look like. But perhaps it's as simple as having a sign in the lobby of each of the hotels in Jack's Beach with a QR code that links you to a website with all of our park information. Maybe it's the equivalent of a bookmark that's left in each of the rooms that has information on it. But that's a way of connecting with the citizens and customers. We'd be connecting with the customers by saying, you're here for the beach, but come check out the rest of the community. Make sure you tell your 12-year-old to bring his skateboard so he can hit the skate park on a day that he doesn't want to be at the beach with the rest of the family. Maybe dad takes him over for a couple hours. And oh, dad, don't forget your golf clubs. And mom, don't forget we've got a tennis center. And for the younger daughter, don't forget we have a splash pad. So there's a little bit of something for everyone, but they don't know that unless we make the effort to let them know. So that's one way of connecting with customers. Pickleball.
I'm fine if we just.
Well, now I don't know if I like it. Because I'm like, if you connect with someone, but it's a call to action, then that's more than just connecting. So I might have a problem with connect now. Mr. Stokes, what say you?
I was just about to say that I kind of liked connecting after that, just because when you started talking about engagement, I remember in the strategic plan, and I think it was centered around, sorry, my iPad kind of died with that power surge that we had earlier when I lost power, but when we talked about priority 1, goal 1, objective 2, about the consistently measuring, we started talking about, how are we going to put this thing on staff that when somebody emails them, they need to email back within 24 hours. And I think we start getting to unreasonable expectations when we put engagement in there, that all of a sudden now the citizen thinks that, yes, we want to respond to all of our citizens, but I think a lot of our heads of departments might need more than 24 hours given some situation that arises in the city. So it's almost to put an unreasonable expectation on our staff when we say, you must now engage with citizens, where we do want them to engage and we want to encourage that, but not ram it down their throats kind of thing. Because we all have inside and outside of work busy lives, and to say, okay, you now have a timetable to engage with citizens who respond to you. Yeah, you may be working on it, but you got to send 10 emails to, sit down and take an hour out of your day to send 10 emails that you could be actually solving that problem that you're emailing the people on. So I was just about to say, I like the connect because it means, yeah, we're going to do that, but we're not going to make sure that we're engaging and being stuck behind the computer instead of out in the field actually fixing the problems.
You good with connect? You gonna go home and watch the video? See what he said? I know. Okay, so as of right now, we're good with connect. And I think that's it.
I think that's it on this item. I thank the council very much, because what we just did here tonight, I had to do in the room with 12 plus people. And there were a lot of comments, so it was really good. That I think that the department directors and some of our senior managers were able to come to a consensus on a direction to go. So the next step, I guess the right way to say it is, the third attachment to the email is basically the clean copy of what the outline of the strategic plan document would look like. What we will do as an organization going forward is start to actually put some details. We'll put together a list of action items that would be under each of these PG and O's. And once we've got what we think is a pretty good list that covers us for several years, we will then bring that forward to council and start having a discussion of the details associated with it. So it may take us a couple of months, but we will get there. Well, that was the first item for tonight. The second item is related to personnel, and I will turn that over to Deputy City Manager Karen Nelson.
Thank you. Staff has discussed with council on a couple of different occasions over the past year plus regarding spinning out the IT department, IT division into its own separate department and bringing in a chief information officer to head that new department. So in the fiscal '22 budget, proposed budget, we are adding that CIO position. We have provided you in this memo also the other positions that we are looking to add, just so you can have some perspective. I want you to consider this holistically. But in the case of the CIO, it being such a pivotal position and a new department, we would like to go ahead and start advertising that position in July. Understanding that it will take us at least 2 months to just get to the final screening process and bring the finalists in for interviews. We are not intending or asking to place any new positions until after October 1st with council approval of the budget, but for this one position, we are asking for some advance sort of head nod agreement for us to go ahead and get that job posted. So I'm here to happy to answer any questions if you have specifics about the position or the pay grade or any additional information that you all might be looking for. Okay.
Just kidding, Ms. Golding?
Ms. Golding.
I do have a question, and it's not about this position specifically, but I know we have talked about the fire marshal's office and support for him, and how, where does that fit in?
Where does that fit in? We have in the current, the 2021 budget, there is a deputy fire marshal position that was included in the budget document but left unfunded. So for the 2022 year, we are proposing to replace that one full-time position with 3 part-time positions. I didn't include it in this memo because it's not technically a new position. We're just looking to add 3 part-times for a total of only 24 hours per week, and that's with no benefits. But we will be asking to fund that with those 3 positions in the 2022 year. In the current fiscal year, we already have 3 individuals who are filling those 3 part-time roles for us. And we have managed to pay for that this year out of contract services. Okay.
Ms. Dumont?
Thank you. I'm happy to see that we're finally going to get a CIO. That is a critical position for any municipality throughout the world. So I agree with putting out the ad in July, because it does take time to find somebody who will meet the skill set that we're looking for. And in addition, that would put them starting right around October so they can start building the department and doing what they need to do to make sure that the city's technological infrastructure is safe.
Thank you. Yeah, we feel it's long overdue, and we would like to advance the opening as quickly as we can.
Mr. Stokes?
Yes, I was just going to go back and look at what information we talked about on the CIO, and it says we discussed on May 21, 2021, and I don't think that
Did you
date's...
see it in the...
No, when I go back to May 2021, we discussed Windward project on the 24th of May. So...
Was there a briefing on May 15th?
So we had a city council meeting January,
May
February,
10th
March,
was the
April,
briefing.
May.
Excuse me.
May 10th.
May 10th. I put the wrong date in the memo.
Aha.
Thanks,
Okay.
AJ.
Sorry. Thank you.
That's quite the tone you have there.
Well,
I never noticed your book before.
yeah.
It's impressive. It's a tone, right? Big book. Okay. Any other questions for Ms. Nelson? Sounds like
Now that we have the date sorted out, Mr. Stokes, if you had any additional follow-up.
Did you find anything concerning on May 10th?
No, I actually, I didn't see it on the 10th, but I might have missed it. So sometimes I try to write fast, but those are my strongest suit. I know we were talking about budget presumptions, but I didn't put anything about the CIO in there.
It would have been discussed under budget presumptions.
And like I said, we will be going into more detail about all of these positions during the budget workshops and the budget showcase. But if there's a general consensus that that position is necessary and you all are ready to go forward with it, we'll go ahead and advertise.
Thank you.
So that was those were the only two items that we had for you tonight. Obviously, items 3 and 4 are committee assignment reports and future briefing topics. The only question I have for council is, at our last council meeting, I believe Mr. DiBenau showed up and handed out some information related to indoor, outdoor seating as it affects alcohol licenses. Is that anything that council wants us to bring back to a future full briefing topic and have Ms. Ireland and administration weigh in with our analysis of Mr. DiBenau's document? I'm
Yes.
seeing heads nodding.
I would like to also add consideration of expanding outdoor seating in the downtown central business district as part of that discussion.
Is that for restaurants or public seating?
Is there anything else that council wanted to bring up at this time for either 3 or 4?
Ms. Golding?
I don't know if this should be a future briefing topic, but Mr. Brown spoke to the city council at the last council meeting, asking that he and his volunteers be allowed to put PVC barriers up in other locations. And, you know, the council had approved the pilot location, which is 2nd Avenue South to 8th Avenue North. And as he mentioned, there have been several requests, and I've had several people email me as well, particularly condo residents who are more than happy to help install the barriers and help to maintain the barriers, monitor and maintain the barriers once they are installed. So I don't know if we need to, in the briefing, discuss that and agree that we would allow that to happen under certain criteria, maybe.
I'm trying to recall if we, in that first briefing when we talked about the barriers, I think we referred to it as a pilot program and said we'd come back at some point in time. So the question is whether or not you want to wait till the end of summer or whether you like what you see now and want staff to work with Mr. Brown to expand it.
Ms. Golding?
Well, I personally like what I see, and certainly I've been going to the beach on the weekends just to check things out, and they're definitely keeping people out of the dunes. But I know that we get a lot of people to the beach, and I was amazed when we were putting the barriers up that, you know, I know that we do get a lot of people in the 2nd Avenue South to 8th Avenue North area, but there's still a lot of people that, especially like Mr. Brown said, in front of Oceanfront Park, and then, you know, even further south. So, you know, it could only help, is my thinking, so I definitely would like to see us expanded if we could.
I have gotten a few emails about that as well, and when I explained to particularly condos, residents in condos, that we were starting with the highest populated areas, but also the areas where the people visiting may be the least informed, because I've really started to realize that people who don't live here, even people that live in Jacksonville but don't live at the beach, don't understand how important the dunes are, or that it's not legal to walk on them. So So when I explain it like that, we're targeting our high traffic areas, but also the places where we have the most visitors, and it's not just I'm getting well, we want that too, and not really with any logic behind it, but just because they want it, because they see other places have it. So I'm fine with sticking through the summer with the pilot program as we have it and see what the impacts are. Obviously, it's very positive, but I don't necessarily know that the need is as great at, way up on the, or way down on the south end versus right in front of the Seawalk Pavilion or Margaritaville where we have a lot of visitors coming in. Mr. Stokes?
I was just gonna say, I think there's a need in some other areas like 16th Avenue South. There's a pretty heavily trafficked beach access. I believe it's 26th or 27th, Georgia. You could probably help me with that exact street right there. And also down at 37, thank you. Too many 30s and 20s. But anyway, those are highly trafficked by non-Jax Beach people a lot through, I know there's a lot of people that are parking on my street that are not Jax Beach people and are parking on 16th that aren't Jax Beach people, and I'm starting to see them definitely walking on the dunes and around that area, especially around some of the beach accesses, because some of our beach accesses down on the south end have gotten covered with sand, and so it's made it very difficult for families to traverse those accesses with their wagons and whatnot, and especially the ones with stairs. So what they're doing is they're walking them around the access and walking through the dunes with their buggy, which is doing even more damage than just if they were walking, because now they're dragging stuff, and so they're dragging a lot of sand. So I think, both that would be, some of these beach accesses definitely need them on both the east and the west side of the beach access, because I'm seeing it and I'm hearing about it also from residents down at my end who have their access covered, and we're talking about how to help alleviate that as a community, but then also are seeing people go right around them with their beach buggies. So there is a need. If we expand it at some point, I think it would be very helpful.
Ms. Golding?
I think that there is a need, though, I would like to see us expand the pilot if we're not going to do other areas that people are requesting, at least to go to like 5th or 6th Avenue South near Oceanfront Park, because that public parking area is heavily used and by people who don't live in Jax Beach. So that is another area, and I think we do see a lot of visitors, south of 2nd Avenue South. So I don't think that 2nd Avenue South is a bright line where we don't see visitors anymore. So I really, if anything, and that was one thing that Mr. Brown requested, was that at a minimum he'd like to be able to put them in at Oceanfront Park. So perhaps maybe be able to extend at least to Oceanfront Park would be helpful, I believe.
I would be on board with Oceanfront Park. There is definitely a bigger crowd there where we have more parking. I guess we're kind of having the briefing now, so. And I have one more late though.
If council would like, I can work with Dennis Barron and we can look at extending from 2nd South down to Oceanfront Park and incorporating Oceanfront Park.
Mr. Moore?
Thank you. Yes, definitely Oceanfront Park. 16th is another area, but specifically, if you do aerial views of 30th Avenue South, you will see that the dune is almost non-existent at that area. There's a very large area where the walkover is, that's covered in sand, and then a large area to the north of the walkover that's just sand, and there is no dune there whatsoever. And you can see that it gets very narrow as well, so I think we can be strategic with the pilot area. 30th is one I would include, and 30th is in worse shape than 16th, and 16th is it's pretty open, but it's set to be that way. So I would say that wherever there is an area where there is a lot of public parking, the 30th is a concern.
Ms. Golding?
Yeah, I meant to mention 16th as well, because I did have a citizen contact me about that, and I looked at it, and I also talked to Mike about it. And so we don't have like a beach walk over there, where as a lot of places we do, it just goes out so far, and then people have to walk through the dune.
There's a walkover, but that's in the sand now. So it's actually a walk-through. But when we redo all the walkovers are going to be 3 feet higher than the highest point of the dune. So to Chet's piece where they can't get their stuff through the dunes, they also avoid any dune walkovers that have stairs because they have their buggies, which pushes them to the side of the walkover going through the dune. So it's a complex situation, but I guess we're really just talking about when we want to have a briefing on possibly expanding the dune protection. And I would agree with looking at expanding the pilot program to Oceanfront Park 16th and 30th.
The good news is that the walkovers are getting covered by sand because our dune system is doing so well. So on the bright side, although that definitely has the side effect of forcing people to go off the walkover. Mr. Mesa?
I'm going completely off subject. I don't know if this is a briefing that we can talk about or something the council has to approve or even as the city as a whole, but with what happened last week down south in Miami with the condo collapsing, it would be nice right now to see what we could do to make sure that that doesn't happen to our lives. I know I've seen condos going through major overhauls, so I just don't know if it's something that we can talk about in the near future.
To give you a little bit of background, I did not get a chance to talk to the building official today. He was out in the field doing some inspections, but I did get a chance to talk to the fire marshal, and the fire marshal had made a point of going out and talking to the buildings that met the criteria of requirement for a structural analysis within the 40-year window. I think everyone's heard on the news now that there was a requirement at 40 years. That seems to be something that comes out of the Florida Building Code. So he's already taken it upon himself to go knock on the doors of each of those buildings and say, hey, if you're over 40, you have to have the report, but if you're getting close to 40, you probably want to start looking at hiring the appropriate firm to come out and assess the building. Just as a little bit of a reminder from the council's perspective, when we do our inspections, we are doing our inspections in accordance with the plans that have been signed and sealed by an architect or a structural engineer who has designed the building. Those architects and engineers are licensed by the state. They carry liability insurance. The general contractor who ultimately builds the building is licensed by the state, carries liability insurance. And once the certificate of occupancies are issued, at that point, the private property owner's recourse is with the architect, engineer, and contractor who made that building rise from the ground. So where you may be hearing some comments about, why aren't the cities doing more to inspect these buildings? The city doesn't typically go into buildings and do inspections for structural integrity. That's not something that we do. In this case, the Florida Building Code has that 40-year requirement onto certain buildings, and from what Mr. Shada was indicating, it's basically, if your building is 40 years old, you're basically predating some of the latest Florida building codes that I think took place after Hurricane Andrew. And again, being in a coastal community, that would be the impetus for those HOAs and building owners to have their buildings inspected accordingly.
Mr. Nichols?
Another subject for future meetings. I know we have a CRA meeting coming up next month, and this isn't right away, but the meeting we had in Orlando and speaking with the mayor of town of Davie, they made a transition from having a separate CRA to doing that internally, and I did get some information from them, the legislation, how they went about it. And Carol Westmoreland, who was the head CRA person for the state of Florida, was very active with them in that preparation. So, I mean, at some point in the future, obviously, I'd like to see it come back up, but I just want to know if y'all are interested. I've shared the information with the city manager. If y'all would like him to share it with y'all, I would just want to know, let y'all know it's available.
Thank you. Just to go back and put a bow on the dune issue. So you're going to get back with, I don't feel like we need to bring it back to another briefing. I think we've talked about it enough extensively in this scenario that you're gonna get with Dennis and see about adding the additional high-traffic areas that we identified in this meeting. Does everybody feel good about that? Okay, great. Any other potential briefing topics? Sorry, you do this part. Committee assignments, anybody have any updates from their committees that they're assigned to? Nothing on loose ends? We have our downtown hospitality business owner meeting tomorrow at Sea Chasers. And we have Karina Saladina, who is the newish executive director of Mission House, is going to be coming to talk. I'm sure we'll get a little bit of a recap from the business owners on Orange Crush and how things went for them, and just some general sharing. They've been going very well, and July speaker is going to be someone from the Donna Foundation to talk about the move of the start and finish of the marathon. I also just wanted to let you guys know, since this won't be at a regular council meeting, Sterling Joyce has retired from Casa Marina, and I've been asked to present him with a Wave Maker Award, which I'm going to go ahead and do at his retirement party that is on July 7th. I will be out of town from June 30th to July 7th, so I'm going to come straight from the airport, but if I'm not able to make it, my trustee Mayor Pro Tem will have the award and we'll be ready to present it from 6 to 9. And I think there's $20 tickets, and there's an event on Facebook. You can buy them through Eventbrite, and it is also at Sea Chasers.
And it's all for charity,
Everything Sterling does is for charity.
making sure we're not.
Oh, yes.
Voting
Oh, yeah.
for the dog.
Thank you. That's a good point. And then I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that the name change discussion going wildly public in the news, I think started because there was a member of the media on our briefing. I think don't know if you guys noticed, but on our Zoom call, there was a member of the media in the audience, probably listening for updates on Orange Crush, picked up on that story, which triggered Facebook, which triggered all the rest of the local media. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that I wasn't out there peddling this as a story. I was chasing it as a story, but so that should be a very interesting conversation going forward. But that's how that all came out. So just wanted to make sure you guys knew. Anything else, Ms. Golding?
To that point, do we want to have a briefing at some point? Because I know we left that as action item for the city manager to look into what we could do to get citizen input on that.
Yeah, where we left it was, and I believe what the direction was I received was that we were going to figure out some way to garner community input on that particular topic and then bring the results back to you at a later date. So Jacob is on vacation, so he hasn't had a chance to dive into it yet. But once he gets back, we'll take a little bit harder look at it in earnest. It's just not something that's going to happen overnight if we want to make sure that we have a true representation of input from the community.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just wanted to remind the mayor and council, I will be out of the office this Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I will be coming back into Jacksonville Beach on Friday evening. In my absence, Deputy City Manager Nelson will have the helm on Wednesday, and Ashley Gossett will be handling the day-to-day operation on Thursday and Friday. I will be back in town for 4th of July weekend if there are any emergencies. That's it. Briefing's done. Thank you all.